Chapter 1042. It had already been a month since the auction had ended. During this month, Yi Chen's story had spread out in the Firebird planet. Everyone was guessing which life star this young man had come from. They did not think that Yi Chen was from the Firebird planet. Otherwise, how could they not have heard of such a genius in all these years? However, ever since that day, Yi Chen had suddenly disappeared without a trace, just like how he had suddenly appeared in everyone's sight. Elysium, the king-grade forbidden place, the desolate mountain. I did not expect that a super earthquake would happen in the desolate mountain, and the whole mountain had sunk in. It should be dozens of miles deep. But the desolate chi down there is so rich. There must be some desolate stones. Although it had been almost 2 years since the disaster of the foreign races had ended, no one had relaxed. They were very clear that if their own power was not enough, and the overall power of Elysium was not enough, it would still be invaded by the demons and the evil spirit race. Only by continuously increasing their own power could they protect Elysium and the billions of creatures in Elysium. And the key to the desolate star, the desolate stone, was without a doubt the easiest thing for them to increase their power. Right then, there were a lot of life and death realm warriors in the desolate mountain looking for the desolate stone. They did not immediately go down to explore, but instead left the desolate mountain and spread the news to the others. The disaster of the foreign races had made them extremely united, throwing away their old grudges and selfishness. 1 week later, I got a desolate stone. I got one too. So many desolate stones. There is no need to worry about not having enough. Everyone can get one. The number of desolate stones under the desolate mountain was beyond everyone's imagination. Finally found the desolate stone. Murong Qingqing was holding a complete desolate stone in her hand, a smile appearing on her face. Not far away, Su Jing was also holding a piece. Two figures flashed past. Dugu Ju and Snow Sword of Gojoseon landed on a strange rock, each holding a desolate stone. Obtaining the desolate stone meant that they were one step closer to Yi Chen. One day, they would enter the universe and embark on their own journey. This was a weapon shop on Fire City's West Street. This weapon shop only had 3 floors, and compared to the other weapon shops on 4 or 5 floors, it was much smaller. The shop was also a bit shabby. The signboard was new, and there were 4 large golden words on it, Falling Dust Sword Pavilion. There was also a sword and a leaf symbol on the bottom right corner. There was a shopkeeper and dozens of employees in the shop. Shopkeeper, what kind of person do you think our owner is? Other weapon shops usually have low-grade weapons on the first floor, mid-grade weapons on the second floor, upper-grade weapons on the third floor, and only semi-extreme grade weapons on the fourth floor. Although our weapon shop is just a normal weapon shop with only 3 floors, we can't possibly have semi-extreme grade weapons on the first floor. One of the shop assistants on the first floor was puzzled. The shopkeeper explained, perhaps the owner is trying to attract customers. Attract customers? I don't think so. The shop assistant shook his head. Although my eyesight is not as good as yours, I can still tell that the half-step extreme grade swords on the first floor are not much better than the other half-step extreme grade swords. However, the price is 2 times, or even 3 times higher. I think the owner doesn't plan to sell these half-step extreme grade swords at all. The shopkeeper was an elder with a clean look. He touched his beard and said mysteriously, "You only see the surface, but not the essence. The semi-extreme grade swords on the first floor are 2 times, or even 3 times more than the others, but the pseudo-extreme grade swords on the second floor are 2 times more than the others. As for the extreme grade swords on the third floor, the owner only put them out, but did not mark the price. He said that he would not sell them for now. Although I do not know what the owner's goal is, I am sure he has his own plans." Listening to you, it does make sense. No wonder the owner would ask you to be the shopkeeper. This shop assistant was very impressed by the shopkeeper, but was also very curious about the owner. Alright, asking so much is not good for you. Go and clean the first floor again. As he said that, the shopkeeper let out a sigh. After so many days, there were quite a lot of customers, but not a single sword had been sold. To be honest, he could not figure out the owner's plan either. Right at that moment, 2 customers walked in. "Sir, please come in." The shopkeeper came to greet them personally. All the swords on the first floor are semi-extreme grade swords. Your weapon shop seems to be different from the others. One of the customers looked over and saw that the first floor was filled with colorful swords. With a rough look, there were hundreds of them. Although they were not out of their scabbards, they still gave off a cold and sharp feeling. The other customer nodded. But soon, he touched his chin and said, "Something is not right. The semi-extreme grade swords here are so expensive. They are at least 2 times more expensive than the others." "Shopkeeper, what is going on? Is this some random price?" The shopkeeper forced a smile. "Dear customers, this is the price that our owner has set. I don't know what his intention is, but I, Zhang Fengyi, can guarantee that these semi-extreme rank swords are all genuine. As for the second floor, there are also pseudo-extreme rank swords, and some of them are even better than the ones from other shops." "Oh, really? Let's go and have a look." The two followed the shopkeeper to the second floor. The swords on the second floor were 70% less than the first floor, only about 70 to 80. Just as the shopkeeper had said, the second floor was full of pseudo-extreme grade swords. The moment they entered, they could feel the cold sword chi in their faces. Anyone below the Sea of Souls realm would not be able to handle it. Therefore, the most basic requirement for a shop assistant was Sea of Souls realm cultivation. The other pseudo-extreme grade swords are normal, but these dozens of pseudo-extreme grade swords are definitely top of the line. But the price seems to be twice as expensive, more than 100 yuan stones. Spending more than 100 yuan stones to buy a pseudo-extreme grade sword, I might as well spend a little bit more to buy a low-extreme grade sword. "Shopkeeper, who is your owner? Don't tell me he is making fun of customers?" To be honest, the two were quite interested in these dozens of swords. The sword intent contained within them was actually attributed sword intent, which was extremely powerful. Its power was at least several times that of normal pseudo-extreme grade swords. However, they were too expensive and not worth it at all. After all, a normal pseudo-extreme grade sword would only cost a dozen yuan stones, and a high-grade one would cost no more than 50 yuan stones. As for the top-grade ones, they would cost at most 8 to 10 yuan stones. The shopkeeper remembered the owner's words, telling him to bring the customers to the third floor no matter what. He smiled. "It is indeed a bit expensive, but I think the price will be lowered in the future. You too, there are still some extreme grade swords on the third floor. Although they are not for sale, you too can go take a look. When they are sold in the future, you can buy them before others." "Alright, I am convinced by your owner. Bring us to the third floor. I want to see how many extreme grade swords there are." The two had already given up on buying swords in this shop. If it were not for the fact that the extreme grade swords were too attractive, they would not even want to go to the third floor. There were only 5 extreme grade swords on the third floor. Cutting Star, low extreme grade. Horizontal Flow, low extreme grade. Blue Sea, mid extreme grade. Crack Gold, mid extreme grade. Cold Moon, high extreme grade. Fuck. There are even high extreme grade swords here. The sword intent contained on them has actually reached the 6th step. The two were dumbfounded. Their cultivation bases were not low, being at the first layer of life and death realm. They happened to be lacking an extreme grade sword. After visiting so many weapon shops, most of them did not have any extreme grade swords. Occasionally, they would come across one, but the quality was ordinary. Therefore, they planned to get a pseudo-extreme grade sword for now, and then buy it when they came across an extreme grade sword that they liked. I'm comprehending Metal Profound and Wind Profound. These 2 metal attribute swords are suitable for me. The metal and water attribute Cold Moon is even better. I'm comprehending Water Profound and Wood Profound. Horizontal Flow and Blue Sea are also suitable for me. Cold Moon is indeed good, but with my wealth, I can't afford it even if I sell my entire family's fortune. Upon reaching life and death realm, one would usually train 2 profounds. As long as the weapon's attribute matched one of them, it would be fine. Of course, there were also people who, in order to match their own profounds, would spend a lot of money to hire peak extreme grade blacksmiths to forge weapons for them. These weapons were usually compound attributed weapons, which meant that they contained more than 2 attributes. Gentlemen, my boss said that every week or so, there will be a new supreme-grade treasure sword here. When the number of supreme-grade treasured swords reaches a certain number, he will start to sell them. The shopkeeper repeated his master's words. What a pity he's not selling now. Fine, I'll remember this weapon shop. Falling Dust Sword Pavilion, right? The two of them stared fixedly at the 5 top-grade treasured swords, wanting nothing more than to snatch them away. Naturally, this was only what they thought in their hearts. Any weapon shop would have countless formations and restrictions set up. Once these restrictions were activated, not only would they be trapped, they would also attract the attention of the city guards of Fire City. At that time, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. After a week, a blue-robed youngster walked out from the backyard of the weapon shop. Boss. Greetings, boss. The shopkeeper and the staff bowed toward Yichen. Thank you for your hard work. Yichen nodded and walked toward the 3rd floor. On the 3rd floor, right now, my success rate of forging swords below the Heavenly King realm has reached 100%. In 3 months, I should be able to open for business. Taking out 2 extreme-grade swords from his storage ring, Yichen hung them on the wall. If someone were here, they would definitely be shocked. 100% success rate, this was already a Heavenly King realm swordsmith. Only Heavenly King realm swordsmiths could achieve 100% success rate when forging swords below the Heavenly King realm. And which of those Heavenly King realm swordsmiths hadn't lived for thousands or even tens of thousands of years? However, in comparison, Yichen's speed was even more terrifying. A week ago, the shopkeeper had said that there would be 1 more extreme-grade sword on the 3rd floor every week. But this week, Yichen had actually taken out 2 extreme-grade swords. This was simply unheard of. Even for a Heavenly King realm swordsmith, when forging swords below the Heavenly King realm, it would take about a month to forge one. The slower ones might even take 2 months. If it was too fast, it would be easy to fail or waste the quality of the materials. 2 swords a week, this speed was more than 8 times that of other Heavenly King realm swordsmiths. Chapter 1043. The 2 newly forged swords were purple gold and blue gold. The purple gold one was called Purple Soul, a mid-supreme grade sword. The blue gold one was called Sky One, a high supreme grade sword. Purple Soul sword contained the metal attribute. Sky One sword contained the metal and water attribute, the same as Cold Moon sword. Strictly speaking, he was only a Heavenly King grade swordsmith in terms of metal and water attributes. If it were any other attribute, he wouldn't be able to guarantee a 100% success rate. Of course, as his sword forging technique improved, although he hadn't started forging swords of other attributes yet, his success rate would also increase. Sword forging technique was the same. A row of 7 swords of different colors. Yichen nodded in satisfaction. He was currently in dire need of yuan stones because of the small Heavenly King grade battleship and this weapon shop. The small Heavenly King grade battleship's speed was 3 times that of a small King grade battleship, and its consumption of yuan stones was 10 times that of the former. If the distance was short, it would be fine. However, if the distance was like the journey from Elysium to Firebird Star, which was close to 1,000,000 light-years, it would consume several thousand yuan stones. In the starry sky, there was an industry called the ride industry. The majority of life and death kings who couldn't afford a puppet battleship had no choice but to ride a puppet battleship. Under normal circumstances, riding a king-grade battleship for 10,000 light-years would cost 10,000 supreme-grade spirit stones, which was equivalent to 1/5 of a yuan stone. Riding a Heavenly King-grade battleship for 10,000 light-years would cost 2 yuan stones. Although it didn't seem like much, it was a huge profit for this industry. After all, they couldn't just carry a single customer. A large battleship could carry 5,000 people. In this way, even a journey of 10,000 light-years would yield a profit of 1,000 yuan stones or 10,000 yuan stones. A journey of 100,000 light-years would yield 10,000 yuan stones or even 100,000 yuan stones. However, the battleship's consumption was less than 1% of that. Yichen had bought the small Heavenly King stage battleship for the sake of convenience, as it was impossible for him to carry people out. As such, he had to bear all the costs by himself. For every million light years, he would use up over 1,000 source stones. Ever since he had bought the small Heavenly King battleship, Yichen only had about 100,000 source stones left. Every time he used it, it would be less. In order to not have to worry about lacking source stones in the future, Yichen could only try his best to earn as many as he could in the early stages. As for this weapon shop, Yichen was renting it. Because the shop's business was not good, the previous owner rented it to Yichen for 3,000 yuan stones per year. Since Life and Death Kings had a lifespan of 100,000 years, it was impossible to rent it for only 1 or 2 years. Either they didn't rent it at all, or they had to rent it for more than 50 years. Yichen had 150,000 yuan stones on him, so he rented it for 50 years. After renting the weapon shop, Yichen's wealth had almost been looted clean. Now, he could only rely on selling swords to earn primordial stones. It was not easy to run a weapon shop. For this reason, Yichen took a shortcut. He bought several hundred semi-extreme grade swords from the market and placed them on the first floor as a front. Moreover, he set the price very high, 2 or 3 times that of other weapon shops. This was because he had no intention of selling them in the first place. He only wanted to put on a front and leave a deep impression on the customers, making them remember Falling Flower Sword Pavilion. As for the pseudo-extreme grade swords on the second floor, most of them were bought. Only a dozen of them were forged by him, and their prices were also very high. His goal was the third floor. He was very clear that no matter how well the semi-extreme grade swords sold, they wouldn't be able to make much money. Moreover, he didn't have the time to forge semi-extreme grade swords. As far as he was concerned, only supreme grade swords could earn him a huge amount of yuan stones. However, a few supreme grade swords wouldn't last long and wouldn't help him build up his reputation. Therefore, he thought of an idea. He wouldn't sell the supreme grade swords for now, but put them there for others to see, letting them know that there were a lot of supreme grade swords here, and each one of them was extraordinary. Moreover, he wouldn't sell them for the time being. When there were more of them, it would naturally cause a huge commotion. At that time, Falling Flower Sword Pavilion's reputation would be established. Even if Yichen raised the price very high, as long as it wasn't outrageous, there would still be people fighting to buy it. After all, not everyone was an extreme grade sword forger like Yichen, who was a life and death realm sword artist with the destruction and immortal sword intents. Without exaggeration, most of the extreme grade sword forgers were only at Sea of Souls realm and couldn't compare to Yichen at all. However, the truly powerful sword artists didn't have much time to waste on forging swords. Of course, for other sword artists, forging swords might be a waste of time, but for Yichen, it was a time to strengthen his foundation. The speed at which a person digested knowledge was limited. Why were some people who had accumulated knowledge for thousands or even tens of thousands of years not able to compare to geniuses? It was because their speed of absorbing knowledge was far slower than geniuses. However, even geniuses couldn't be infallible and make use of all the useful knowledge. The process of Yichen forging swords was also the process of digesting knowledge. Those details that he had overlooked in the past, as well as the comprehension that he had missed, would slowly appear in Yichen's mind. Then, after thousands of refinements, they would become Yichen's foundation, his foundation. Not to mention anything else, ever since he had arrived at the Firebird Star and successfully forged 7 extreme grade swords, Yichen felt that his Sword Dao realm had increased by a lot. Before, he had merely reached the initial stage of no sword in hand and no sword in heart. But now, he had already reached the middle stage of this realm. When he attacked, there wouldn't be any fluctuations in his mind. Moreover, because his mind was free of distracting thoughts, the speed of his attacks had become even faster and more focused. The improvement of Sword Dao realm was also a great help in exerting one's strength. Although Yichen had stepped into the Palace of Strength Control very early on and had advanced by leaps and bounds to a point where he couldn't even grasp his limits, no matter how good his strength control was, it still required the coordination of Sword Dao. This was because Yichen was first and foremost a sword artist. In other words, strength control was the foundation of the foundation, and Sword Dao was to use this foundation in the form of Sword Dao to display 100% or even 200%. The higher one's Sword Dao realm was, the more one could display the advantage of strength control. In addition, Yichen found that forging swords could also train his sword intent. He had the destruction and immortal sword intents. During the battle with the Troll Emperor, the immortal sword intent had broken through to the 7th step, while the destruction sword intent had remained at the peak of the 6th step. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least a few years or even dozens of years to upgrade the destruction sword intent to the 7th step. After all, the destruction sword intent was the strongest sword intent, which was much harder to upgrade than the ordinary sword intent. But now, he had a feeling that if he continued to forge more extreme grade swords, the destruction sword intent would reach the 7th step even faster. At that time, if the destruction sword intent and immortal sword intent were both at the 7th step, they would resonate, and both would advance rapidly. It should be known that the 7th step immortal sword intent already gave Yichen the sword intent protection ability. The 7th step destruction sword intent would definitely have a huge breakthrough in terms of offensive power. Chapter 1044. The extreme grade metal Yichen had purchased in Blue Leaf City was enough to forge 300 to 400 extreme grade swords. Among them, the metal and water attributed materials made up about 1/5 of the total, which was about 70 extreme grade swords. Apart from the slightly higher failure rate in the beginning, the success rate in the later stages was 100%. Therefore, with this 1/5 of the materials, Yichen had forged 54 extreme grade swords in total. Among them, 25 were low grade, 22 were mid grade, and 7 were high grade. It was not only because of Yichen's improvement in the later stages, but also because of the quality of the materials. The more powerful the sword, the better the materials needed. The weaker the sword was, the better the materials would be. When there were 54 extreme grade swords on the 3rd floor, another 4 months had passed. Subtracting the previous 7 swords, Yichen had forged an average of 12 swords in a month. If this were to be spread out, it would shake the entire Firebird Star, the entire Vermilion Bird Star region. 12 swords in a month meant 144 swords in a year, and 1,440,000 swords in 10,000 years. Even if only 10,000 years of one's life were spent on forging swords, one would be able to create hundreds of millions of swords, and this was under the condition that one's level did not increase. Lifefire City was extremely vast, occupying an area of a few thousand li naturally. The majority of the area was the outer city. The inner city only occupied an area of about 100 li. And the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion, which was located on the western main street of the inner city, had become extremely popular recently. All the life and death swordsmen living in Lifefire City basically knew that the Falling Flower Sword Pavilion had a large number of peak-grade swords that had yet to be sold. These swords were all of extremely high quality, containing either a powerful immortal sword intent or a destructive sword intent. They were many times more valuable compared to other swords of the same grade. Hifeng, have you heard? Mr. Falling Dust Sword will start selling those extreme grade swords next week. However, there is a rule in the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion, and that is, if the profounds do not match the extreme grade swords, they will not be sold to him. Your profounds just happen to include the water profounds, which is completely in line with the rules. Inside a tea house, 2 life and death realm warriors were chatting. They are going to be sold next week? That's great. A look of joy appeared on the middle-aged man's face. 2 months ago, he had gone to the Fallout Sword Pavilion. He had been waiting for the day the top-quality sword would be sold because he had his eyes on the Songhai sword. At the same time, everyone was talking about the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion. A week passed by quickly, and the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion immediately became the center of the West Main Street. Hundreds of life and death realm sword artists came and went. Among them, 80% didn't cultivate metal profound or water profound, but the remaining 20% still amounted to nearly 100 people. 54 supreme grade swords on the 3rd floor were completely sold in half an afternoon. 54 top-grade swords cost me a total of 46,000 primordial stones. Why do I feel like I've made a loss? Yichen smiled bitterly. In the universe, low-grade supreme-grade weapons were usually sold for 200 to 300 primordial stones, Mid-grade supreme-grade weapons were 500 to 700 primordial stones, and high-grade supreme-grade weapons were 1,000 to 1,500 primordial stones. On average, a low-grade supreme-grade sword could be sold for 400 primordial stones, 25 of them would be 10,000 primordial stones, 1,000 primordial stones for 1,000 primordial stones, 22 of them would be 22,000 primordial stones, and high-grade supreme-grade swords would be 2,000 primordial stones. 7 of them would be 14,000 primordial stones, making it a total of 46,000 primordial stones. It didn't seem like a lot, but it wasn't a loss at all. Instead, it was a huge profit. Yi Chen had spent 20 to 30,000 primordial stones to buy the materials, but he had only used about a fifth of them. The top-grade swords made from this fifth of the materials were sold for 46,000 primordial stones. Not only did he earn back the cost of the materials, he also earned about 20,000 primordial stones. With these 46,000 primordial stones, Yi Chen didn't lack primordial stones for the time being. As for spending 150,000 primordial stones to rent the weapon shop, that was something he had no other choice. After all, he had to plan for the future. This famous weapon shop was like a mother hen, constantly producing primordial stones. If he didn't rent the weapon shop, even though 150,000 primordial stones seemed like a lot, it would be used up one day. At that time, he wouldn't even have enough primordial stones to rent the weapon shop. Right now, I have a 100% success rate in forging metal and water attribute top-grade swords, but I haven't forged a Heavenly King stage sword yet. To forge a Heavenly King stage sword, the main material must be Heavenly King stage. Let's go to the 5 Elements land first. That is the most violent place on the Firebird star, and it has nurtured countless kinds of metal materials. Yi Chen liked to finish everything he did. Successfully forging a metal and water attribute Heavenly King stage sword was his first destination. White Tiger Star Field, in the deep starry sky near the giant Blade Star. A sabersman and a swordsman were facing off against each other, and there were 2 young people watching from the side. The sabersman was the lifeless sabersman, Lung Fifan. The swordsman was a young man dressed in blue, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. However, his blue clothes were different from Yi Chen's. Yi Chen's was sky blue, while his was azure blue. The 2 young people watching the battle were a man and a woman. The man had broad shoulders and a slim waist, and a pair of wolf-like eyes. Obviously, he was not human. The woman had a voluptuous body, and was as beautiful as spring water. She wore a green dress, and carried a hexagonal short stick on her back. She looked both heroic and flirtatious. These 4 people were all monstrous geniuses on the Heavenly King list. Not to mention Lung Fifan, the swordsman in blue was the flawless swordsman, Zhao Wuk, ranked 11th on the Heavenly King list. The inhuman young man was the strange Speed Wolf King, ranked 14th on the Heavenly King list. The beautiful woman in green was the violent queen, Yan Feihua, ranked 8th on the Heavenly King list. Zhao Wuk, the divine trial field is about to open. You don't have to fight me now. Lung Fifan said. I said that we will fight in 3 years. Now, 3 years have passed. Zhao Wuk's eyes were sharp, and they could see through everything. Are you sure you want to challenge me now? I am afraid that you will lose to me again, and it will hurt your spirit. Why don't you save your energy and wait for the divine trial field to open? Lung Fifan did not want to fight Zhao Wuk. Zhao Wuk seems to be underestimated. Yan Feihua smiled like a flower. Zhao Wuk is quite stubborn. He didn't challenge anyone else but Lung Fifan. The divine trial field is about to open. Who would want to expose too many trump cards? The strange Speed Wolf King shook his head. Make your move. Zhao Wuk did not waver. He had lost to Lung Fifan 3 years ago. 3 years later, he had to fight Lung Fifan no matter what. Lung Fifan was his shackle. Only by breaking the shackle could he improve faster. All right, be careful. Seeing that he could not dissuade Zhao Wuk, Lung Fifan's eyes gradually turned cold. His emotionless eyes were like those of a demon god. It made Yan Feihua and the strange Speed Wolf King, who were standing far away, become serious. This was the real Lung Fifan. Once he got serious, he would be like a demon god. Clang. Zhao Wuk took the initiative to draw his sword. His body flashed, and he appeared in front of Lung Fifan as if he had teleported. He slashed down with his sword. This sword attack was extremely fast and flawless. Then, Lung Fifan drew his blade as well. He waved his blade and blocked Zhao Wuk's sword. The blade chi and sword chi merged together, shattering a small star nearby into pieces. It has begun. Yan Feihua and the strange Speed Wolf King did not blink their eyes. There was a reason why Zhao Wuk was called the flawless sword artist. His sword art seemed to be flawless. Be it speed, power, or accuracy, they were all amazingly unified. When the three were unified, the destructive power would be extremely shocking. Even Lung Fifan did not dare to be careless. Compared to Zhao Wuk's sword art, Lung Fifan's blade art was not any weaker. However, different from Zhao Wuk's, Lung Fifan mainly focused on speed and power. His blade was like a rolling thunder that could steal people's souls. As for accuracy, he had completely ignored it. For him, balance meant mediocrity. Ding, ding, ding. Sparks bloomed like fireworks, lighting up the sky. The battle between Lung Fifan and Zhao Wuk had quickly reached its climax. Even Yan Feihua and the strange Speed Wolf King had to pay full attention to the battle. Zhao Wuk, you are still lacking a bit. The blade light was like a waterfall. Lung Fifan sent Zhao Wuk flying with a single slash. Both of his hands were numb. Zhao Wuk was sent flying thousands of li away before he managed to stop himself. Lung Fifan, the battle is not over yet. A terrifying aura suddenly burst out from Zhao Wuk's body. This aura flashed for a second and eventually merged with Zhao Wuk's body. In the next second, Zhao Wuk's long hair grew longer, and his pupils turned into a focused silver color, giving off a feeling that he had forgotten himself, yet was extremely self-centered. The power was condensed into a single point. Selfless state. It's the selfless state, no wonder. Yan Feihua and the strange Speed Wolf King exclaimed. So you have also comprehended the selfless state, no wonder you are so confident. However, I have already comprehended the selfless state during our last battle, but you failed to force me to use my true strength. A terrifying aura burst out from Lung Fifan's body as well, making him look like a demon god. His long hair grew much longer, and his pupils were a deep silver color. The aura of his power did not leak out, but was completely concentrated within his body. Let's continue. The selfless state represented extreme single-mindedness. Zhao Wuk was not affected by Lung Fifan's words at all. His figure dashed forward at a rapid speed, attacking Lung Fifan. This time, the battle was extremely intense, as if it was in another dimension. The speed and strength of the two had increased by a few times. Most of the time, one could not even see their figures. One could only see the sparks from the clashing of the saber and the sword, accompanied by the shattering of small stars, lighting up the sky. Not only does the selfless state allow one to utilize their potential effectively, but it also allows them to unleash their power to an unprecedented level due to their instincts. Each of their attacks is extremely destructive. However, it seems like Zhao Wuk's selfless state is still a lot weaker than Lung Fifan's. Yan Feihua analyzed. How exciting, I can't wait to go up and fight. The strange Speed Wolf King licked his lips. You will definitely be beaten to a pulp. Yan Feihua rolled her eyes. Chapter 1045. Not fast enough, not strong enough. Zhao Wuk, if you want to defeat me, your current strength is far from enough. Bring out more of your true strength, or the battle will end very soon. Lung Fifan held his saber with one hand, fighting with ease. Each slash gave the impression of a star exploding, or a heavenly river pouring down. Zhao Wuk was completely submerged in his saber aura, drifting along with the flow. Both of us have reached the selfless state, but Zhao Wuk is still lacking. The only reason why he could last until now is because of his precise sword arts. Yan Feihua placed her right index and middle finger on her nose. Her eyes were focused, watching every detail of the battle between Lung Fifan and Zhao Wuk. Violent lady, you've also comprehended the selfless state? The oddly fast Wolf King asked in surprise. Yan Feihua smiled seductively. Do you really think that Yan Feihua, can't comprehend the selfless state? You humans are truly freaks. Your life form isn't that high, but your comprehension is so strong. I still don't know what the selfless state is. The oddly fast Wolf King wore a helpless expression. You don't rely on your comprehension to make a living. Plus, after so many years, you should have refined a lot of beast essence by now. I really can't hide anything from you. The oddly fast Wolf King chuckled, but his heart shivered. Although Yan Feihua was called the Violent Queen, she was not a muscular woman. Her eyesight was just as violent. Bajura slash. Raising his saber up high, Lung Fifin slashed down. This slash had abandoned all pretentiousness, all honor and disgrace. This slash was purely a slash meant for slaughter. Once the slash was unleashed, it would only be for the sake of killing without any external factors. This was the Azura slash, a slash with no emotions. Such a terrifying slash. Is Lung Fifin going to kill Zhao Wuk? Yan Feihua was shocked. His soul shivered. Every single cell in Zhao Wuk's body could feel the terror and mercilessness of this slash. He strongly felt that if he did not break through now, he would die under this slash. It was not without reason that Lung Fifin's saber art was said to be lifeless, where even ghosts and gods could not escape from it. Uncontrollably, the billions of cells in Zhao Wuk's body began to squirm, spewing out immense power. It was as if they were operating in an overload. All of this power gathered in Zhao Wuk's brain before spreading out in all directions. In the next instant, Zhao Wuk felt as if he had been struck by an electric current. His soul felt transparent, and everything slowed down in his eyes. Rumble! The saber light and sword chi exploded, and Zhao Wuk was sent flying back while coughing up blood. The saber light had already been shattered, but the saber aura was still suppressing him like an illusory saber. Chi! On Lung Fifin's cheek, a wisp of blood floated up, and a thin sword mark appeared there at a sharp angle. As expected of the flawless swordsman. At the critical moment, you have reached the edge of the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm. Putting his saber back into its sheath, Lung Fifin revealed a faint smile. Just now, if Zhao Wuk had not broken through, he would not have been able to block that attack. Even if that attack could not kill him, it would have made him lose more than 90% of his power. However, there were no ifs. Zhao Wuk had reached this realm after all. Not only had he neutralized 70% of the Azura Chop's power, but he had also counterattacked, causing the sword chi to graze his cheek. This time, the god's test field will be quite lively. Yan Feihua's eyes flashed with excitement. How could she not see that Zhao Wuk had already reached a higher level of the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm? The selfless Heavenly Eyes did not only strengthen the eyes, but also the senses of the whole person, such as the 5 senses. It should be known that all of a person's actions depended on the 5 senses. Everything in the world had a flaw. Although it seemed like there was no flaw, it was actually because one's realm was not high enough. When the 5 senses reached a certain level, nothing could hide from one's perception. A few thousand li away, Zhao Wuk coughed out mouthfuls of blood. His body was on the verge of breaking into pieces, covered with deep cuts. These cuts kept on wriggling. In a short period of time, it was impossible for him to recover with his immortal body. The destructive saber intent and saber chi contained in the cuts were still present. What an impressive Azura chop! Zhao Wuk raised his head and fixed his gaze on Lung Fifin. Lung Fifin said, "Being able to survive my Azura chop, you can barely be considered as one of my strong opponents. However, if you really want me to go all out, you'll have to at least reach the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm. Otherwise, I'll kill you for real next time." As the last sentence was spoken, it was as if a demonic figure had appeared behind Lung Fifin. Still not going all out? Zhao Wuk had no idea how much of Lung Fifin's strength had been used, but he still had to thank him. Without the pressure from Lung Fifin, he would not have been able to reach the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm so early. Hee, what an exciting battle. Lung Fifin, I'm looking forward to fighting you in the divine trial field. Zhao Wuk, you'll be even stronger the next time we meet. Otherwise, it'll be boring if you only have a few opponents. Yan Feihua had already left, her voice reverberating in the same place. She's moving so fast. Why do I feel like I might not be able to suppress her in terms of speed? The eccentric Wolf King rubbed his chin as his body gradually faded. See you two at the divine trial field. In the next second, his body turned into nothingness. Before leaving, Lung Fifan said to Zhao Wuk, I've met an interesting swordsman on the Firebird Star. I'm not sure if he has comprehended the selfless Heavenly Eyes realm, but his ability in this aspect is not simple. Don't be careless when you meet him. Oh right, he's wearing sky blue clothes. Lung Fifan left. A swordsman in sky blue clothes? Zhao Wuk was slightly more cautious. If Lung Fifan said he was not simple, then he must be. The Land of Five Elements was located in the extreme west of the Firebird Star. With the help of the star-shrinking device, Yichen soon confirmed the location of the Land of Five Elements and drove the Golden Phantom there. Golden Phantom was the name Yichen had given to the small Heavenly King-grade battleship. In fact, the speed of the Golden Phantom on the Firebird Star was not even as fast as Yichen. Under the obstruction of the atmosphere, the larger the body, the greater the obstruction. The Golden Phantom was almost 100 meters long and 12 meters wide. Although it was streamlined and could reduce the obstruction of the atmosphere to a certain degree, it was still far from the human body. However, the diameter of the Firebird Star was only 27 million miles. Being a bit faster or slower wouldn't make much difference. Riding the Golden Phantom would save him a bit of Zhenyuan. The interior of the Golden Phantom was extremely luxurious. Inside the hall, Yichen was enjoying the scenery outside the cabin while drinking the wine. He had been forging the sword for half a year, and it had been a long time since he felt this relaxed. After finishing a bottle of wine, they arrived at the Land of Five Elements. The Golden Phantom was shaking violently. Exiting the cabin, Yichen went outside and saw an earth-shattering five-colored wind blowing over. The five-colored wind could melt gold and bones, and only life and death kings could resist it. Putting away the Golden Phantom, Yichen descended. Swoosh! As soon as he landed, a golden light figure pounced over. Its speed was as fast as lightning, and its aura was exceptionally sharp. It's the Gold Spirit King. Yichen's eyes captured the shape of the golden light figure. It was a golden creature without any facial features. Its entire body was made of golden metal, giving off a heavy and sharp feeling. Its right hand turned into a huge blade and slashed toward Yichen, easily cutting apart the five-colored wind. It seems to have no intelligence. Life forms formed from Yuan Qi had some intelligence. Otherwise, they wouldn't have become life forms. However, this Gold Spirit King didn't seem to have any intelligence. It only knew how to kill. There were no rules to its moves. It was the most primitive form of attack. Releasing his sword aura, the Gold Spirit King was frozen in place. Yichen walked over unhurriedly and pressed his palm on the ladder's chest. Swoosh! 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 Each of his 5 fingers released a strand of sword chi. The 5 strands of sword chi interweaved together, forming a horrifying sword chi tornado that sliced the Gold Spirit King into nothingness. The sword intent contained within it even destroyed the ladder's consciousness, making it unable to reassemble its body. Killing the Gold Spirit King was as easy as lifting a finger for Yichen. He gradually entered the depths of the Land of Five Elements. The Land of Five Elements was filled with all kinds of Yuan Qi living beings, such as the Gold Spirit King, Wood Spirit King, Water Spirit King, Fire Spirit King, and Earth Spirit King. In the area where Yichen was, the Gold Spirit King was the most numerous. Uncle, we can't hold on much longer. Let's retreat. In the depths of the Land of Five Elements, the Demi-Beast Kings were killed one after another. Only the 2 most powerful Demi-Beast Kings were fleeing in panic. Of these 2 Demi-Beast Kings, one was a middle-aged man with a cultivation base of 5th layer life and death realm, and the other was a young man in embroidered robes with a cultivation base of 4th layer life and death realm. Their opponent was a powerful Gold Spirit King. This Gold Spirit King was twice the size of an ordinary Gold Spirit King. Its body was not pure gold, but rather dark gold. One of its arms had transformed into a huge blade, while the other into a long sword. Blade light and sword shadows filled the air, and nothing could stop it. Even if we want to retreat now, it won't let us go. The middle-aged demi-beast king smiled bitterly. The dark gold spirit king charged over. Its right hand transformed into a huge blade, and a huge crack appeared on the ground. The ground of the land of 5 elements was extremely hard. Being able to leave a mark on it was already quite good. Only a 5th-layer life and death realm expert could do such a thing. The middle-aged demi-beast king was also a 5th-layer life and death realm expert, but his attack couldn't even break through the gold spirit king's defense. On the other hand, the opponent's attack could easily cut through his protective genuine. "Uncle, someone is coming." While fighting, the young man didn't forget to observe the surroundings. "Yeah, be careful. Those who appear here are not good people." The middle-aged demi-beast king retreated while fighting. Soon, a human figure flew over. Suddenly, the figure accelerated and flashed toward the middle-aged demi-beast king. "Not good. Be careful." The middle-aged demi-beast king was shocked, thinking that the opponent was going to hit him while he was down. The dark gold spirit king was blown away, its body shattering into pieces. Fortunately, he didn't hit him while he was down. But what a powerful attacking power. It actually shattered this gold spirit king. This gold spirit king's defense has reached the extreme mid-rank armor level. The two were extremely shocked. This gold spirit king was not an ordinary one, but a 5 elements gold spirit king. Its defense was extremely frightening, and anyone below the 6th layer of life and death realm would not be able to injure it. Chapter 1046. The defense is comparable to the middle grade armor. As expected of the 5 elements gold spirit king. Yichen exclaimed in admiration. Supreme grade armors were extremely difficult to destroy. Even a low-grade supreme grade armor was not something an ordinary king could break. At most, it would leave behind a mark. For example, when Yichen fought Giant Demon Emperor, the low-grade supreme grade armor on his body wasn't destroyed. In terms of toughness, mid-grade supreme grade armors were 10 times stronger than low-grade supreme grade armors. From this, one could see how powerful the defense of 5 elements gold spirit king was, as well as how frightening Yichen's palm containing 5 sword chi was. Clang, clang, clang. The twisted sound of metal rubbing against each other rang out, and the 5 elements gold spirit king's shattered body once again condensed together. The golden liquid at the wound squirmed and quickly stuck together, and at the same time his body compressed a little, making his entire body look even more solid and heavy. Just looking at it with the naked eye, it gave off an unbearable feeling. Every time the 5 elements gold spirit king is shattered, the strength of its body will increase. Unless it is destroyed in an instant, or when the strength of its body increases to the limit of its endurance, it will not die. Young master, thank you for helping us repel the 5 elements gold spirit king just now, but do not fight it head-on. The middle-aged half-demon king reminded Yichen. Every time it breaks, the strength of its body increases by 1. Interesting. Reaching out with his right hand, Yichen grabbed the hilt of the Demon Slayer sword and turned to the two of them. "You guys stay away." "Young master, you." The middle-aged half-demon king was helpless and retreated far away with the young half-demon king. The speed of the 5 elements gold spirit king was very fast. With a flash of golden light, its sharp body was like a machete as it slashed over, but the fatal thing was not its body, but its arms that had turned into swords. It crossed its arms and slashed towards Yichen's head, and what was even more terrifying was that its body also released a circle of golden light domain, sealing Yichen's body. It actually has a natural domain. A hint of surprise flashed on Yichen's face. The sword domain was released, and the golden light domain was forced back. Then, the sword domain turned the tables and enveloped the 5 elemental metal spirit king. Yichen's sword domain had already reached the 4th layer. As soon as the 5 elemental metal spirit king was enveloped by the sword domain, its speed instantly decreased as if it had fallen into a swamp. On the other hand, Yichen's speed erupted, and he brushed past the 5 elemental metal spirit king's body. Gotcha! The body of the 5 elements gold spirit king froze in midair. In the next moment, it was split into 2. It was not over yet. The 2 halves of the body seemed to be in the middle of a storm of sword chi, breaking apart from the inside out. Almost every metal particle was cut by a tiny sword chi, which was violent and dense. Second drive. The best way to break an undying body or vitality life form was to use multiple stacks. The first stacks would shatter its structure, and the second stacks would destroy it completely. Although killing moves with great destructive power could also completely annihilate the opponent, it was not like using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. Multiple stacks were much simpler. Moreover, multiple drives should not be underestimated. The first and second drive were nothing, but the third drive was equivalent to a powerful killing move. The fourth drive could destroy almost everything, and the fifth drive was a forbidden area. This is the second drive. The young half-beast king's eyesight was not weak. Second drive. The middle-aged half-beast king looked at him. The young half-beast king said, 2 years ago, I saw a battle between the Sky King list warriors. Both of them could use the second drive. I did not see it at that time, but there were powerful warriors among the spectators. After listening to their explanations, I realized that the explosion was a phenomenon of multiple drives. In the end, one of them even used the third drive and defeated his opponent. So it was multiple drives. No wonder he could easily split the body of the 5-elemental metal spirit king. The middle-aged half-beast king said slowly, "Sha sha 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 sha." Metal particles flew all over the sky. With a point as the center, they rotated and condensed. Because there were too many metal particles, the friction was too strong. That place, blazing flames and lightning shot out, and a fine whirlwind cut the ground. Even the second drive doesn't work? Yichen turned around. In the blink of an eye, the body of the 5 elements metal spirit king was successfully reconstructed. What made people despair was that its body became smaller again, which meant that its defense had increased by a lot. Since the second drive doesn't work, then the 3 drive. Raising the demon-slaughtering sword high up, Yichen slashed out vertically. An intense red light seemed to seep into the space, dyeing the 5 elements metal spirit king dark red. Countless fine sword marks appeared on the surface of its body. Pa pa pa. The body of the 5 elements gold spirit king instantly exploded into millions of metal particles, which then exploded into metal dust. The dust was then annihilated into nothingness and turned into the purest energy, which was then absorbed by the 5-colored wind and blown in all directions, in the sky and on the ground. 3 drive, it's a lie, right? He can actually use 3 drive? The young half-beast king opened his mouth, unable to close it. Obviously, the 5 elements metal spirit king couldn't withstand the 3 drive from Yichen and was completely destroyed. I thought the 3 drive wouldn't work. That's right, although the 5 elements metal spirit king's defense is powerful and has no weaknesses, its consciousness shouldn't be that strong. Otherwise, it wouldn't have turned into nothingness so easily. Every cell in Yichen's body contained the rank 5 immortal sword intent. Even those who were much stronger than Yichen could only injure his body. They couldn't smash him into pieces unless they were 10 times stronger than him. If the 5 elements metal spirit king's consciousness was a little stronger, maybe Yichen wouldn't have been able to kill it with 3 drive. After all, for a living being with flesh and blood, having such a strong defense should be a body refinement king, and a body refinement king wouldn't die so easily. As for the multiple drive, Yichen had mastered it a long time ago. When he fought against the Troll Emperor, Yichen could use 2 times the power of his sword. That was the embryonic form of the second drive. At that time, he had just entered the palace of controlling power, so he didn't have the time to study the multiple drive. It had been 2 years since the disaster of the alien race, so no one knew what level he had reached. You two, hurry up and leave. More 5 elements metal spirit kings are coming, and there's more than one. Yichen said to the 2 half-beast kings. Qinglei, let's go. Yes, uncle. The uncle and nephew left quickly. They had brought many powerful warriors to the 5 elements realm, but in the end, only the 2 of them were left. If the 2 of them were to die, the family would suffer a great loss. Time to enjoy. After the 2 left, Yichen could test his moves to his heart's content. He knew more than just the multiple drive. Jinghong young master is back. He's challenging the Phantom Sword King at Wild Gazing Plains. Wild gazing plains, challenging the Phantom Sword King. The Firebird continent had three main cities. One was Firebird City, the other was Fire City, and the last was Jinghong City. On this day, in the tea houses, restaurants, and streets of Jinghong City, the news was spreading everywhere. Jinghong Young Master, the leader of the Firebird planet's 10 heroes, had returned and immediately challenged the Phantom Sword King. The Phantom Sword King was the leader of the Firebird planet's 10 heroes 10 years ago. The rules of the Firebird planet's 10 heroes were the same as the Heavenly King ranking. Only those under 50 could enter, and those over 50 would lose the right. The Phantom Sword King was 60 this year, and exactly 50 10 years ago. As the leader of the Firebird planet's 10 heroes 10 years ago, the Phantom Sword King might not have entered the Heavenly King ranking, but it didn't mean he was weaker than the Jinghong Young Master. On the contrary, he might even be stronger than the monstrous genius ranked 90th on the Heavenly King ranking. A year ago, the Jinghong Young Master had challenged the Phantom Sword King and lost miserably. This time, he was here to wash away his shame. Only by defeating the opponent who had defeated him could he improve faster. This was the saying of the geniuses. Flawless sword artist Zhao Wuk was like this, and so was the Jinghong Young Master. Wild gazing plains, a large number of life and death kings had already gathered here. Everyone's gazes were focused on two people. One was a young man with a ghostly aura, and the other was a skinny young man wearing a yellow robe. They were indeed the Phantom Sword King and the Jinghong Young Master. One of them was the leader of the Firebird planet's 10 heroes, and the other was the current leader. Jinghong Young Master, it's only been a year, and you've already come to challenge me. Seems like you've improved a lot. The Phantom Sword King said indifferently. The Jinghong Young Master said, only by defeating you will I have the right to enter the God test field. If I can't even beat you, then no matter how much I improve, I won't be able to surpass those people. Indeed, it's for the God test field. Unfortunately, I failed in the first round back then. The Phantom Sword King looked up at the sky, his face full of emotions. However, I won't let you win just because I want to help you. If you want to beat me, you'll have to use battle power that surpasses your limits. Otherwise, even if you go, you'll still lose. Of course. What kind of victory would it be if you let me win? Under everyone's gazes, the two exchanged blows. They went all out right from the start. The Phantom Sword King's sword art was ethereal like a ghost, twisting its trajectory, while the Jinghong Young Master's sword art was fast. Is this the power of the leader of the Firebird planet's 10 heroes? He's not even in the same dimension as us. The ground was sliced open, and the sword chi interweaved. The two figures continuously flashed, clashed, and brushed past each other before turning back to attack. This is the result of my 1 year of training. Take this. After hundreds of exchanges, the two were still evenly matched. Right at this moment, the Jinghong Young Master's sword speed increased by a couple of times, seeming to increase twice in a row. Third drive. The Phantom Sword King's pupils dilated. So what if it's third drive? Illusion and reality, overlay. Sword shadows flew everywhere as the Phantom Sword King's sword art was used to the limit. One bright and one dark, the two sword shadows overlapped and met the opponent's attack. Clang. The two swords clashed, and the Phantom Sword King's arm shook violently. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he flew backward. Third drive had already surpassed normal top-rank profound martial arts. The power of the three strikes was even more unbearable. I won. The Terpsichore Prince was panting heavily. In order to use 3 stacks, he had received the cruel training that his master had arranged for him over the past year. He had not had a single day of rest. However, if he could defeat the Phantom Sword King, it would all be worth it. Li Jinghong, you've finally beaten me. There's still half a year until the God's trial field. I hope you won't slack off in this half a year. The Phantom Sword King was not dejected. The new beating the old was something that happened every day in the universe. He was not missing. Don't worry. From now on, I won't lose to anyone easily. The Jinghong Young Master's body released a wisp of faintly discernible aura, as if he had unlocked some shackles. You've already reached third drive? Looks like I've fallen behind too much in my 5 years of slumber. Luckily, with Mr. Ye's guidance, I've successfully reached second drive. Lan Xian was in the crowd. In the 5 years of slumber, she had been stagnant, while others had advanced by leaps and bounds. However, the stronger the Jinghong young master became, the more respect Lan Xian had for Yichen. If he could make her grow this much with just a few months of guidance, then just how powerful was his own realm? Chapter 1047. White Gold Stone. Dragon Spring Iron. Although the 5 elements land was indescribably dangerous, it couldn't obstruct Yi Chen in the slightest. After a week, Yi Chen had obtained 2 kinds of Heavenly King-grade metals, white gold stone and dragon spring iron. White gold stone was a kind of white gold stone. A fist-sized piece weighed over 10,000 jin, and one would feel a stabbing pain in the hand. This was the unique sharpness of white gold stone. Anyone below life and death realm would be turned into a hornet's nest just by touching it. Swords forged from white gold stone were exceptionally sharp and intimidating. Yi Chen had obtained a total of 2 pieces, one fist-sized and the other palm-sized. Both were worth no less than 2,000 yuan stones. Dragon spring iron was even more famous than white gold stone. It was a kind of water-attributed metal material. At first glance, it looked like a block of solidified spring water. However, its weight was even greater than white gold stone. A fist-sized block weighed 18,000 jin. Dragon spring iron was extremely tough, and its extensibility was second to none. A treasured sword made from it was a combination of hardness and softness. It could bend and stretch, and it could be wrapped around the waist. The 5 elements land is indeed a treasure land. I actually found white gold stone and dragon spring iron. These 2 materials were among the top treasures in the books on metal materials. Obtaining one was a huge stroke of luck, and obtaining the second could only be described as a rainbow of luck. With the white gold stone and dragon spring iron, Yi Chen had no intention of staying. He directly flew into the sky and boarded the Golden Phantom, flying toward Firebird Continent's Flame City. Young Master Yi, you're finally here. On the first floor of the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion, Lan Xian had been waiting for a long time. Yi Chen was startled, then smiled. How did you find me? The Falling Dust Sword Pavilion's name has been rising in Flame City recently, so I came to take a look. I found dozens of pseudo-supreme grade swords on the second floor that contained young Master Ye's sword intent, so I knew that this Falling Dust Sword Pavilion is related to young Master Yi. Lan Xian said honestly. So that's how it is. Come, let's go to the courtyard. There was a large courtyard behind the Falling Dust Sword Pavilion. 800 meters below the courtyard, one could forge swords. This was the complete Falling Dust Sword Pavilion. Both 2 of them went to the courtyard, and Yi Chen brewed tea for the other party. Lord Yi, I hope that you will continue to teach me. I am different from my sister. She doesn't have a strong competitive spirit and doesn't ask for much. I, on the other hand, want to make a name for myself in the divine trial field. Lan Xian didn't hide her intentions or her competitive personality. She knew that she couldn't hide anything from this man. His all-seeing eye could see through even the smallest details. Yi Chen didn't reply directly. He flicked his hand, and an iron stake forged from star iron pierced deep into the ground of the courtyard. 7 consecutive stabs. All right. Lan Xian didn't know Yi Chen's intentions, but she didn't want to suspect anything. She stood up, pulled out the sword at her waist, and stabbed the star iron pillar. Then she stabbed it 6 times in a row. Each stab is a millimeter deeper. This proves that you have the potential to open the selfless realm. Yi Chen could see that Lan Xian was improving with each stab. This sounded exaggerated, but it wasn't at all. A millimeter was hard to detect with soul power. The improvement was very small, but it was still improvement. This was something that ordinary geniuses couldn't do. Only geniuses who were constantly improving could do it. The selfless realm? Lan Xian had heard of it, but she had never seen it. The selfless realm is divided into the spiritual level and the ego level. In the early days, when we cultivated, we would pursue a state of selfless cultivation. That was the spiritual level. The spiritual level could allow one to be very focused, but it couldn't surpass oneself. The ego level, on the other hand, could achieve this. Hearing this, Lan Xian nodded. She wasn't a stranger to the state of selfless cultivation. Basically, anyone with a bit of talent could cultivate in a state of selfless cultivation. The ego level is to be clear about oneself and then forget oneself. Only by becoming familiar with every bit of oneself and understanding the secrets of one's body can one truly forget oneself and enter an unprecedented realm. This realm is the selfless realm that I speak of. The selfless realm had already been opened in Duguju, but that was when he was in a state of madness. It was unknown if he had truly opened it now. At the last moment, Lu Xiaoyu had pushed the selfless realm to the selfless realm, but that was at the cost of burning his life. It wasn't a normal method. Why were Duguju and Lu Xiaoyu able to open it so early? No matter how much Yichen thought about it, he still felt that it was because Elysium was too closed, so his cultivation couldn't improve. As a result, he was already very familiar with his own body. At every moment, he had to squeeze something out of it. That was why two of them had entered the selfless realm. As for Yichen himself, he surprisingly didn't enter the selfless realm. But he didn't feel that it was strange. The selfless realm was a situation where one already knew their limits. Yichen still couldn't determine where his limits were. No matter how much he squeezed, he could still improve. In the battle with the Troll Emperor, his repeated breakthroughs were proof. Moreover, his soul power was too strong, and his brain cells were abnormally active. This also increased the difficulty of opening the selfless realm. However, although he didn't open the selfless realm, Yichen's control of power had already reached an unfathomable level. To open the selfless realm, the level of power control must be high. This was the prerequisite of the prerequisite. If the level of power control didn't meet the requirements, the body wouldn't be able to cooperate. Yichen let Lan Xian study the basic swordsmanship so that she could improve the level of power control. This was to build a foundation for her. Then what should I do? Lan Xian asked. It's very simple. Continue to study the basic swordsmanship. This star iron pillar, after being smelted, is as hard as a low-grade armor. If you can pierce it with your sword within a month, I will give you special training. If you can't, then you should go back. I can't teach you too much here. There are many things that you can't rely on others. To open the selfless realm, the level of power control must be high. Lan Xian was still a bit lacking. Unless she was like Duguju and Lu Xiaoyu, opening it in an abnormal state, but that kind of opening had too many drawbacks. It wasn't the same as opening under the selfless realm. Okay. Lan Xian bit her lip. She knew that this was a test that Yichen gave her. If she couldn't even pass this test, then she wasn't worthy of being taught. Now, can you tell me what the God test field is? Yichen asked at this time. Lan Xian knew that Yichen came from some living world, so he might not have heard of the God test field. She said, the God test field is the true God test field. Inside is the mighty power of the true God. Only those under 50 years of age can enter. Once you completely pass the test, you will have the qualifications to enter the God paradise. I don't know anything else. True God? The true God test field? Could the legend be true? Legend had it that the realm after life and death realm was true God realm. This was a legendary realm. Life and death realm could be found, but true God realm was not. Therefore, true God realm was a legendary realm. However, no one had ever seen a true God, and no one knew what it was. What kind of method was there to cultivate to true God realm? Everything was unknown. I also don't know if true God is real or not, but the God test field and the God paradise have existed since ancient times. The mighty power inside is something that even the ninth sky of life and death realm can't see through, and they can't force their way in. I think the saying that wind can't come from an empty cave is most likely true. Lan Xian spoke her opinion. These things are too far away from us. When we reach that step, we will know whether or not it is true. Yichen didn't dwell too much on whether true God existed or not. Days passed by, and soon, half a month had passed. In this half a month, Yichen had already started forging Heavenly King grade swords. He didn't have much white gold stone and dragon spring iron, so he could only forge one heavenly king grade sword at most. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless and poured his heart and soul into it, leaving Lan Xian outside. In this half a month, Lan Xian didn't sleep or rest, working extremely hard. She knew that if she still couldn't pierce through the star iron pillar with triple force, she would lose her chance. As long as I reach the triple force realm, I can completely pierce through the star iron pillar. But how can I reach the triple force realm? Up until now, Lan Xian could only pierce through 1/3 of the star iron pillar. She was 2/3 away from completely piercing through. Ordinary people would have already lost hope. It's a little difficult to go from the second force to the triple force in a month. Moreover, she had been asleep for 5 years. Even if I taught her for 3 months, it would be like pulling up seedlings to help them grow. This caused her foundation to be solid, but her understanding wasn't enough and she couldn't make full use of it. She didn't know when, but Yichen walked out. Xian young master. Lan Xian was too focused and quickly turned her head. Think more and you can do better. You don't sleep or rest, and you don't give yourself a chance to think. It's easy for you to go berserk and create a knot in your heart. Yichen reminded her. But Lan Xian was very unwilling. How about this, in the next few days, you can watch me forge the sword from the side. It should be beneficial to you. Yichen felt that it was necessary to help her. Ding ding dang dang. Bright sparks flew, and the sword intent burst forth. On the sword furnace, Yichen constantly hammered the sword embryo. The iron hammer in his hand was like an iron sword. Every strike would produce a huge vibration force, accompanied by a peerless sword intent. This was the vibration sword intent forging method that Yichen had comprehended himself. It could fully fuse the materials together and use the sword intent to clear the meridians. Lan Xian watched from the side, inexplicably shocked. Normally, when forging a sword, one would have to be extremely careful. Most of the time, they would be testing it out. When the hammer truly fell, they would have already figured out how to forge the sword. However, Yichen's sword forging gave people the feeling of a sword artist waving his sword. It was continuous, decisive, sharp, and majestic, without any hesitation. Watching him forge the sword, one's heart seemed to have become a sword embryo, constantly being hammered and forged. Gradually, one's sword heart became clearer and clearer. This was both a sword forging method and a way to temper the sword heart. Chapter 1048. After watching for 3 days, Lan Xian returned to the surface under Yichen's instructions and continued to stab the star iron pillar. 5 days later, Lan Xian had stabbed 2/3 of the way through. She had reached the third drive realm, but the third drive could not overlap with the previous 2 drives. It was not complete, so she could not pierce through the star iron pillar. Just a bit more. Lan Xian returned to the surface to watch Yichen forge swords. Yichen's swordsmithing technique had long reached the realm of perfection. He had been able to forge 12 supreme-grade swords in a month because he could see through it. He did not hesitate when forging swords. Every time the hammer fell, he was 1 step closer to completion. There was no hesitation, no sluggishness. Rather than saying he was forging swords, it was more like he was practicing swords. He practiced to his heart's content. There was no hesitation, no sluggishness. Every move was natural. Sometimes, even he did not know why he would swing the hammer. Clang. Another hammer fell, and sparks flew in all directions. It contained a peerless sword intent. Lan Xian wanted to dodge, but she didn't know why she couldn't. With a poochie sound, several sparks pierced through her body, burning her flesh. What was even more terrifying was that even though it was just a few sparks, it was like an invincible sword chi, exploding bloody holes in her body one after another. Countless fine sword chi minced her flesh and blood. Did you comprehend it? Yichen asked. I see. Thank you, Mr. Using the immortal body, Lan Xian returned to the surface. Standing in front of the star pillar, she stood there for a day and a night. At dawn, she suddenly pulled out her sword and stabbed at the star pillar. The speed of this stab was unparalleled, like a sword from the gods. The star iron pillar was pierced through. Countless cracks appeared around the hole. This was the destructive power of the third drive. The wind blew, and the star iron pillar completely fell apart. After piercing through the star iron pillar, Lan Xian smiled. Third drive had been completed. The next 5 months should be enough for her to open the Inetta realm. However, when she thought of the flying sparks, she couldn't help but shiver. Sir Ye's realm had indeed reached an unfathomable realm. Every spark contained the third drive. Although not much power was poured into it, it was still shocking. Young Master Yi is forging a sword, so it's not a good idea to disturb him. I'll continue to familiarize myself with the mysteries of third drive. Lan Xian was not in a hurry to find Yi Chen. It was already her fortune that Yi Chen could teach her. Because she wanted to open the Inetta realm, she had to interrupt other people's business. She could not do such a thing, nor could she forgive it. 3 stacks was broad and profound. In the early stages, one could only use it wholeheartedly. In the middle stages, one could use it at will. In the late stages, one could use it at will. As long as one wanted, one could use it from any part of their body. As for Yi Chen's 3 stacks, which could only be executed with sparks flying everywhere, it was impossible to estimate his realm. Another 6 days passed, and the month was up. At this time, Lan Xian had already stabilized the third drive. She could be considered to be at the peak of the early stages of the third drive. As long as she wasn't too distracted, she could use the third drive. The third drive is indeed powerful. When the third drive is combined, it's not as simple as 3 times the power. The third drive is already more than 10 times the power, and it can completely destroy matter. The first drive could shatter the structure of matter, the second drive could destroy matter itself, and the third drive could annihilate matter's most basic molecules. It seems that you have stabilized the third drive. Next, I will help you open the Inetta realm. Originally, after comprehending the third drive, you should have touched the Inetta realm. However, because the time was too short, you didn't have much time to comprehend it. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least 3 years. The third drive was a checkpoint. Breaking through to the third drive meant touching the Inetta realm. Lan Xian had lost too much time to comprehend, and now, Yi Chen wanted to help her break through to the Inetta realm. Helping someone break through to the Inetta realm wasn't something that could be done just by saying it. Yi Chen was certain that he could do it because every single one of his cells contained the rank 5 Immortal Sword intent. Under the operation of the sword intent, he could already deduce a trace of the mysteries of his cells. It might only be 1,000th or even a 10,000th of the mysteries, but he still grasped a trace. The Inetta realm was the effective use of the body's potential under the Inetta realm. This potential was the potential of the cells. Of course, there was no such thing as cells in this world. It was usually described as particles of flesh and blood. As long as he could force out a trace of the cell's potential and combine it with the state of mind, he would be able to achieve the profound meaning of the Inetta realm. At that time, he would naturally be able to effectively use the potential under the Inetta realm. The third drive had already given Lan Xian the foundation to open the Inetta realm. What Yi Chen needed to do next was to push the boat with the current. Force out the human body's potential and enter the stage of forcing out the human body's potential at any time. These are 2 steps. Attack me with all your strength and don't hold back. The stronger, the better. Yi Chen said. Yes, Mr. Yi, be careful. Lan Xian really didn't hold back. She knew very well that even if her strength increased several times, she wouldn't be able to do anything to Yi Chen. Holding the sword in her hand, Lan Xian slashed at Yi Chen with all her strength. Yi Chen stretched out his right hand and spread his fingers. Clang! The palm and sword collided, and Lan Xian took half a step back. The strong shockwave spread out and was absorbed by the restrictions and formations in the courtyard. Okay, I already know your limit. The second time they fought, Yi Chen only used the same amount of strength as his opponent. The third time was the same. On the 18th time, Yi Chen's strength began to increase, but it was only a trace. Lan Xian could still withstand it. The 19th time. The 20th time. The 98th time. Lan Xian couldn't take it anymore. Yichen only increased his strength by a little each time. It didn't seem much, but it was like adding straw to a camel. One day, the camel would be crushed and couldn't get up again. The 100th time, blood flowed from the corner of Lan Xian's mouth. The 200th time. The 300th time. Lan Xian spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face was pale gold. I think you should be able to last until the 400th time. At the 500th time, your whole body will collapse and your life will be hanging by a thread, Yichen said. Mr. Yi, continue. Lan Xian said firmly. Okay. Yichen nodded. He increased his strength bit by bit to force out the other's potential. The reason why he didn't increase his strength to the limit that the other could bear was because it was too dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he could kill the other. If he did that, the other wouldn't be able to comprehend too much. It was the demonic path, not the right path. Of course, not everyone could do what Yichen did. Not to mention Yichen's realm, just his soul power that was 10 times stronger was rare. There had never been a second person who could do it. The 400th time. The 400th time. Lan Xian exploded into a bloody mist. After the bloody mist condensed into a human body, her eyes began to dim. The 500th time. Bang. This time, Lan Xian only kept a part of the bloody mist. Continue after a week. In the first 500 attacks, Yichen didn't use his sword intent. If he did, it would erase the other's soul and will. If it accumulated, she would die without a doubt. But even without sword intent, enduring 500 attacks from Yichen wasn't a good thing. Lan Xian felt very tired. She couldn't lift any strength in her body. She felt that something was wrong. The undying body also had a limit. It couldn't be used too many times. Obviously, Lan Xian's undying body was reaching its limit. A week later, the two fought 720 times. Another week later, the two fought 1,000 times. Week after week. 3.5 months had passed since Lan Xian came to Fallen Dust Sword Pavilion. It's time to break through. This time, the two fought 1,888 times. After 1,888 times. Boom. A terrifying aura burst out from Lan Xian's body. This was a phenomenon forced out by her potential. Lan Xian's hair grew longer and shone blue. Her eyes turned silver and extremely focused. Under the selfless realm, her battle intent awakened and she continued to fight with Yichen. Yichen smiled indifferently and chose to collide with the opponent with the same amount of strength. Then he increased his strength every time. It seemed to be endless. But now he began to pour sword intent. Under the selfless realm, Lan Xian's battle power reached its peak. Without sword intent, Yichen couldn't increase his strength again and again. Lan Xian didn't last long after entering the selfless realm for the first time. It was about 15 minutes. During this time, she improved a lot. Part of her potential had been transformed into her own battle power. This was the abnormality of the selfless realm. Every time she used it, she would become stronger. Of course, the selfless realm was entered by forcing one's potential. No one dared to enter the selfless realm too often. Although it was possible to improve by leaps and bounds, it was also possible to kill the goose that laid the golden eggs. It would lead to the exhaustion of one's potential and they would never be able to enter the selfless realm again. Step by step, this was the right way. After all, the potential was limitless, and the human body had its limits. Nearly 4 months passed, and the Heavenly King-level sword that Yichen had started to forge was finally completed. In these 4 months, he didn't spend much time teaching Lan Xian. He came out once a week, and each time was only about an hour. The rest of the time was spent on forging the sword. On this day, the sound of the sword soared into the sky, shattering the clouds. The peerless sword Qi was like a divine dragon, noble and fierce. Underground, Yichen held a peerless sword in his hand. This sword was 4 feet and 2 inches long. The body of the sword was like an ancient spring, but it was also suffused with traces of platinum gold. It was hard and soft, and looking down at the sword was like climbing a mountain and looking into an abyss. It was ethereal and deep, as if there were streams of clear spring water flowing down, unfathomable. With a flick of his wrist, the body of the sword was like a spirit snake, constantly changing. It was impossible to know where the tip of the sword would appear. It seemed that any point could be attacked, and there were no blind spots. I'll call you the Dragon Spring Sword. The Dragon Spring Sword was hard and soft at the same time. When it was hard, it was invincible, cutting through everything. When it was soft, it was like a stream of water, piercing through any gap. This sword was a heavenly king-level sword with a combination of metal and water attributes. Chapter 1049. Yi Chen didn't plan to sell the Dragon Spring Sword. His demon-slaughtering sword was only a high-quality sword, and because of its special attributes, Yi Chen wasn't confident that he could upgrade it to the Heavenly King stage. Therefore, the Dragon Spring Sword would become a great weapon for him. After all, he cultivated the metal and water profound meanings, so there was no barrier between him and the Dragon Spring Sword. Moreover, this time, Lan Xian had brought him 94,000 yuan stones. These were the extra yuan stones after selling the 10 demons battleships. In total, there were 394,000 yuan stones. Adding these 94,000 yuan stones, Yi Chen's own yuan stones had reached 140,000, which wasn't a small amount. There was no need to sell the Dragon Spring Sword. However, if I sell this sword, even if it's not as good as the Time Blade, it should still reach 15,000 yuan stones. The price of a Heavenly King stage sword varied from high to low. The lowest was only 3 to 5,000 yuan, while the highest could easily reach tens of thousands. The price of a Heavenly King stage sword was reflected in two aspects: the materials used to forge the sword, and the skills of the person who forged the sword. When the two were combined, the difference in price was too great. Yi Chen had already prepared the Dragon Spring Sword scabbard. This scabbard was made entirely of Dragon Spring iron and was also priceless. It could also conceal the Dragon Spring Sword's sharpness. Sheathing the sword, Yi Chen returned to the ground. The selfless state wasn't easy to grasp. The first time Lan Xian had entered the selfless state was when she was forced by Yi Chen. The second time, without Yi Chen by her side, she had spent a whole 3 days to enter the selfless state. Now, a day had passed since she entered the selfless state for the second time, but she hadn't entered the selfless state for the third time. The secret of the selfless state should be fighting spirit. Your fighting spirit isn't strong enough. Think about why you want to become strong. Think about why those who walk before you can laugh in the starry sky. Their fighting spirit is far above yours. Yi Chen's voice poured into Lan Xian's ears. Fighting spirit? I, Lan Xian, will not lose to anyone. Yi Chen's voice seemed to have a magical power. Lan Xian's eyes burned. Immediately, she entered the selfless realm for the third time. Her blue hair grew long, and her pupils became focused silver. All the power in her body condensed in her body. Potential and true essence mixed together, becoming the power of selfless. While Yi Chen was teaching Lan Xian, all the geniuses in the universe were working hard. The gods' trial field was about to open in 2 months. If they didn't work hard, they would likely be surpassed by others. In the end, they would fall short and become someone else's stepping stone. As a genius, no one wanted to fail. Pure Grace City, Prince Jinghong, will never become someone else's stepping stone. The state, break through. On the vast training field, Jinghong's body emitted a terrifying aura. His long hair grew longer, and his eyes turned silver. It was as if he could see through people's souls. Prince Jinghong had also reached the selfless realm. He was different from Lan Xian. Lan Xian had been asleep for 5 years, and her strength had stagnated. Although she had Yi Chen's guidance, she hadn't comprehended much. Therefore, after reaching 3 drive, she couldn't rely on herself to open the selfless realm in a short period of time. On the other hand, Prince Jinghong had been improving all these years. Coupled with his master's cruel training, he had mastered 3 drive. Opening the selfless realm was a matter of course. Congratulations on entering the selfless realm, Prince. With your strength, you will definitely be ranked in the top 90, or even the top 80. On the side of the training field, the housekeeper of Pure Grace City smiled. It's still not enough. In the remaining 2 months, I have to push the selfless realm to a higher level. Otherwise, I won't be able to stand out. The monsters on the king's list are not that easy to surpass. Prince Jinghong was still not satisfied. If he could improve, so could others. Under his master's cruel training, he could improve by leaps and bounds. His only advantage was his cultivation base, which was at the 5th sky of life and death realm. Even in the king's list, only 30 to 40 people had reached this realm. If he could improve his selfless realm, he had the confidence to enter the top 50, or even higher. On a certain dead star in White Tiger Starfield, a sword artist in blue stood quietly with his eyes closed. He was the flawless swordsman, Zhao Wuk. After the battle with the lifeless saber artist Lung Fifan, he had stayed on this dead star for 4 months. Lung Fifan's strength had given him a great shock, and he had obtained great benefits from the duel. In the past 4 months, he had been immersed in the process of breaking through to the selfless realm. Every time he comprehended something, he would enter the selfless realm to digest it. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. An extremely frightening aura burst out. In the past, when Zhao Wuk entered the inner realm, other than his hair growing longer, his pupils were silvery white. Now, his pupils changed from silvery white to a deep silver. In the next moment, specks of gold appeared in the deep silver, adding an indescribable vitality to his focused eyes and a penetrative power that allowed him to see through the trajectory of the world. Clang. Unsheathing his long sword, Zhao Wuk slashed at the dead star below. This slash was natural and untraceable, yet it seemed to be everywhere. Under this slash, there were no blind spots to speak of. Rumble. This dead star was not very big, only 10,000 li in diameter. After suffering Zhao Wuk's slash, it actually started disintegrating, leaving only a dark red core. Zhao Wuk's slash seemed to have found the main weak point of the dead star and disintegrated it in one fell swoop. This kind of method was many times more difficult than directly shattering the dead star. The former relied on brute force, while the latter relied on one's technique and ability to see through weaknesses to the extreme, easily disintegrating a star. Lung Fifan, thanks to you, I've entered the selfless Heaven's Eye realm, but I still can't see through your previous realm. Zhao Wuk was not too excited. He knew that if he challenged Lung Fifan at his current realm, there was no way he could win unless he improved further and pushed the selfless Heaven's Eye to a new height. Letting out a breath, Zhao Wuk flew away from this place. He found a star that was twice the size of this one. This star was brimming with vitality and its weak point was not so easy to see. The vermilion bird star field on a white star. This star was only several thousand li in diameter. From afar, it was white and looked very cold. However, the temperature on its surface was tens of thousands of degrees, distorting one's vision. If Yi Chen was here, he would definitely recognize that this was a white dwarf star. White dwarfs were a type of star in the late stages of its life. Their density and temperature were very high, and the gravity on their surface reached an exaggerated degree, tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of times that of Earth. Even atoms would be crushed, and no matter could exist on their surface. If a human stood on them, they would instantly be vaporized. However, on this white dwarf star, there was a black-robed youngster. He was unexpectedly able to resist the gravity of the white dwarf star. He continuously punched out, and with each punch, ripples would appear in the void, seeming extremely heavy. Being able to resist the gravity of a white dwarf star was a ridiculous feat even for life and death kings. Although life and death kings were not inanimate objects, they were not completely defenseless. Their bodies contained extreme power, and as long as they were powerful enough, they would be able to resist the powerful gravity. Moreover, the body of life and death kings was extremely tough. Even if they didn't use Zhen Yuan and dived into the magma, they would not be injured in the slightest. Most importantly, the martial will of life and death kings was extremely powerful and could isolate powerful injuries. However, there was still a limit. The surface temperature of a white dwarf star was not much, but the gravity of tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of times that of Earth was too frightening. It was an existence that could crush atoms. Normally, Only people at the sixth sky of life and death realm would be able to survive on a white dwarf star. This was because at the sixth sky of life and death realm, one's Jinyuan would be pure to an unimaginable level. Even the gravity of the white dwarf star would not be able to affect one's body. Of course, the sixth sky of life and death realm would not be able to fly on the white dwarf star, and could only walk or run. This black-robed youngster was only at the fourth sky of life and death realm, but he was able to survive on a white dwarf star. It was indeed a very frightening thing. However, this black-robed youngster was not a normal person. The energy outside his body was a protective chi layer, which meant that he was a body-refining king. Body-refining kings' survival ability was way higher than other life and death kings. Their chi power was completely born from their cells, and they were at the forefront of the human body development. Each of the black-robed youngsters' punches carried 4 layers of overlapping ripples. This was the 4th layer power, which could crush atoms. The 3rd layer power could crush the most basic molecules of matter, while the 4th layer power could crush atoms. Although the enemy was not completely defenseless and could use their protective Jinyuan and martial will to counteract most of the power, they would still receive a huge amount of damage. The weaker ones would be directly blown into nothingness. It was just like how not everyone could survive on a white dwarf star. Perhaps even the black-robed youngster himself would not be able to withstand this punch, because this was a white dwarf star. Outside, the power of this punch would be even more powerful. Almost there. If I continue, my chi power will be completely used up. After an unknown period of time, the young man in black stopped. He did not have much energy left in his body. Once his energy was depleted, he would be crushed into powder and turned into nothingness. Training on a white dwarf star was a very dangerous thing to do. Walking step by step, the black-robed youngster arrived 10 meters away from where he was. There was a special rope hanging down, which did not break even under the gravity of the white dwarf star. Grabbing onto the rope, the black-robed youngster said softly, "Full speed." In the starry sky outside the white dwarf star, a small Sky King-level battleship maintained its momentum at all times to prevent itself from being pulled by the white dwarf star. As the black-robed youngster spoke, the battleship's momentum increased drastically, flying into the distance. The rope tied to the battleship pulled the black-robed youngster out. Sitting in the hull of the battleship and drinking wine, the black-robed youngster revealed a smile. "I, the Black Destruction King, am here. I wonder if you guys are ready?" Chapter 1050. After entering the selfless realm for the 10th time, Lan Xian finally grasped the ability to enter the selfless realm at any time. The selfless realm was indeed unbelievably powerful. Every time she entered the selfless realm, a small portion of her potential would transform into Lan Xian's own strength. After 10 times, her strength had increased slightly, but correspondingly, she began to feel tired. The selfless realm is a way to stimulate potential. If you enter the selfless realm consecutively in a short period of time, your potential will be stimulated too much. From now on, unless it's necessary, you cannot enter the selfless realm again. Yichen reminded Lan Xian. Yes. Lan Xian nodded. While you still have time, practice more basic swordsmanship. When you reach the God's trial field, I won't guide you anymore. You need to judge and evolve on your own. For some reason, Yichen always felt that Lan Xian had improved so fast with his help, and there would be some hidden dangers. Before this, she could not even perform the second drive, but now she had already entered the selfless realm. Days passed. Lan Xian practiced basic swordsmanship on the left side of the yard, while Yichen practiced basic swordsmanship on the right. With a swing of the sword shadows filled the air with blinding white light. The sword swung out slowly, but it arrived in a flash. Profound of speed. Profound of slowness. I see. There is no absolute fast or slow in this world. Profound of speed is to strengthen the senses and body. Profound of slowness is the complement of profound of speed. Fast and slow were Taishu's illusions. They were a kind of understanding of speed. However, what was fast and what was slow? In the eyes of a normal person, A bird flew very fast. In the eyes of a warrior, a bird flew very slowly. In the eyes of a normal warrior, light was supreme. In Yi Chen's eyes, light was only about twice as fast as him. Everything came from the senses. If one's senses suddenly increased, one would discover that things that were fast would become very slow. One's speed and reaction would also become very slow. However, the senses belonged to oneself. When the senses became stronger, one's body would correspondingly improve. In the end, the position between the two would become the same as before. The slowness' profound meaning was a denial of oneself. It was like someone pouring a bucket of cold water on one's arrogance to wake one up. It was the supplement of the swiftness' profound meaning. The selfless heavenly eye realm strengthens all senses. It's similar to the fast profound meaning. Perhaps they are the same thing. It's just that the process of entering is different. Soon, there was only 1 month left until the opening of the test field of God. Basically, all the geniuses from the 4 major galaxies had already set off for the test field of God. Young Master Yi, let's go. Compared to a few months ago, Lan Xian's essence, energy, and spirit had improved greatly. It was as if she had been reborn. Xer isn't going? Yi Chen asked. Lan Xian shook her head and said, she said she's not strong enough, so she won't go. Alright, let's go then. After all, Lan Xer's foundation was a little weak, and she didn't have any fighting spirit. It was hard for her to make a difference. In the life galaxies, there were some astral teleportation formations. These astral teleportation formations were made from an entire planet. They could teleport to another astral teleportation formation. The closest astral teleportation formation to planet Firebird was about 30 light-years away. Riding on the Golden Phantom, the two arrived in about 10 hours. The astral teleportation formation wasn't free. The cost depended on the distance. Since the test field of God was in the region between the 4 major galaxies, the two prepared to teleport to the innermost astral teleportation formation in the Vermilion Bird Star region. The distance between the two was a shocking 1 million light-years. 10,000 light-years was 10 source stones, so 1 million light-years was 1,000 source stones. It was 5 times more expensive than riding on a Heavenly King battleship. Most people wouldn't choose to teleport. After all, source stones were hard to come by. Wait a little longer. We need to gather 100 people before we teleport. The astral teleportation formation's shape was very strange. Below it was a complete planet. Huge tubes of different lengths were inserted into the planet. The shortest was 100 miles, and the longest was 1,000 miles. At the end of the tubes were discs. The discs were the astral teleportation formations. At this moment, at the end of the longest tube, there were a few dozen people standing. At the edge of the disc stood an old man. He was the person in charge of the teleportation. 100 people will be very fast, Lord Yi. Lan Xian said to Yi Chen. And there's no rush. Yi Chen nodded. After waiting for about 6 hours, 100 people were gathered. On the astral teleportation formation, a dazzling light exploded. Everyone disappeared without a trace. About 2 hours later, 100 people appeared on the astral teleportation formation in the innermost part of the Vermilion Bird Star Zone. Most of these 100 people were here for business. Only 2 were young people like Yi Chen and Lan Xian. From Lan Xian, Yi Chen learned that these 2 young people were part of the Firebird Star's 10 prodigies. One was ranked 6th, Luo Yinkong, and the other was ranked 8th, Shattered Star Wang Yuanqing. Yuanqing, do you think he will pass the divine trial field? Luo Yinkong quietly asked Yuanqing. Yuanqing shook his head. I don't know. You should know that although we are part of the 10 prodigies, the Vermilion Bird Star Zone alone has more than 1,000 planets with life. The 4 major star zones together have more than 5,000 planets with life. There are tens of thousands of geniuses like us, but only 100 people can enter the Heavenly King ranking. Among these 100 people, perhaps no more than 10 can pass the divine trial field. It's too difficult. That's right. The Heavenly King ranking is full of monsters. It is indeed difficult to stand out. Aside from a few people, The others can't guarantee that they can keep their ranking. Among the tens of thousands of geniuses, no more than 1,000 people were prepared to give it their all. The others were here to experience the divine trial field. Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing were the same. If you wanted to go to the gods' trial grounds, you had to go to God's planet first. On God's planet, there was a god's ship there. It was impossible to reach the god's trial grounds from other places because no one knew where it was. As for the god's star, it was a small star with a diameter of only 1,000 miles. The gravity on it was equivalent to 1/10 of a white dwarf star. If one couldn't resist the gravity of the god's star, they would lose the right to enter the divine trial field. In other words, the divine trial field had begun the moment the god's star appeared. The god's star was 70,000 light-years away from the star transfer array. Riding the Golden Phantom, the two of them spent half a month before they reached the god's star. From afar, Yichen put away the Golden Phantom. The gravity of the god's star was very strong. It could pull a puppet warship over and tear it to pieces. Is this the god's star? After putting away the Golden Phantom, Yichen's gaze fell on a small star tens of thousands of miles away. This small star was golden, as if it was made of gold. There were no stars around it, nor were there any twinkling stars. It seemed to be shielded by an invisible power. The little golden star floated there by itself, noble and sacred. Buzz. Not far from Yichen, another small heavenly king warship appeared. It was Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing. Let's go. Yichen took the lead and flew toward the god's star. Lan Xian followed closely behind. Success or failure depends on this. Luo Yinkong took a deep breath. Her emotions were fluctuating. Don't worry. As long as we stay on the god's star for 6 hours, we will get a trial spell. With it, the gravity of the god's star will not affect us. Yuan Qing reached out his right hand and patted Luo Yinkong's shoulder. Under the pull of the god's star's gravity, Yichen and Lan Xian were involuntarily pulled over. The two slightly offset most of the gravity to avoid crashing into the god's star. As they got closer, the gravity they felt increased exponentially. Normal life and death realm warriors would be shattered in the process. Pap. Finally, the two landed on the god's star. The gravity here is a few million times that of Earth. Yichen measured the gravity. Are you okay? Turning around, Yichen saw an unnatural blush flash across Lan Xian's face. The gravity here is too strong. I'm not used to it yet. Lan Xian had already activated her protective Zhenyuan. Her sword intent also spread out, covering her protective Zhenyuan. Be careful. Stay by my side. Don't get too close to those people. On the god's star, there were tens of thousands of young warriors. Often, some of them would attack others, and their protective Zhenyuan would be shattered. Just as they were about to be crushed to death by the gravity, a golden bubble would suddenly appear on the ground, wrapping around them and sending them out of the god's star. Yeah. Lan Xian studied Yichen and found that Yichen had only activated his protective Zhenyuan. He did not even release his sword intent, as if the gravity on the god's star was nothing to him. How could she know that every single one of Yichen's cells contained the rank 5 Immortal sword intent, which was equivalent to a normal rank 6 sword intent? His body's toughness had reached a shocking level. Basically, every single cell was hard to kill, not to mention a body made up of billions of cells. Luo Yinkong and Yuan Qing also came down. Unfortunately, Luo Yinkong only lasted 15 minutes before he could not handle the huge gravity anymore. He was sent out of the god's star by the golden bubble, losing his qualification. Yuan Qing was called the Broken Star King. He could attack and defend at the same time, so he managed to hold on. During this time, hundreds of people lost their qualification. Basically, one person would be sent out of the god's star by the golden bubble every second. The gravity here was really hard to bear. Even if they could hold on for a while, they would not be able to hold on for 6 hours. Hee, you two can go back now. Not far away, a tall and sturdy young man flew over with bad intentions and threw 2 punches at Yichen and Lan Xian. Before this, he had already sent a few people away. He liked the feeling of those people running away crazily. You're the one going back. Opening his right hand's 5 fingers, Yi Chen threw out a palm attack. Boom! Like a cannonball, the opponent was sent hundreds of meters away and then sent out of the god's star by the golden bubble. Many people looked over. The power of Yi Chen's palm was too shocking. This was the god's star, and the gravity here was horrifying. It could actually send someone hundreds of meters away. Chapter 1051. Interesting. Do any of you know who he is? 100 miles away from Yi Chen, there was a small group of people. Each of them had a golden jade talisman around their necks. With the talismans, they didn't seem to feel the gravity of the god's star. The one who spoke was a tall woman with countless braids. She was taller than most of the people here, around 2 meters tall. However, she didn't look bulky. Her 2-meter height brought out her figure to the extreme. Her breasts were high, her waist slender, her thighs strong, and her butt perky. She was the beautiful snake Tusha, ranked 48th on the Sky King list. This small group of people were all monsters on the Sky King list. Of course, this was only limited to the Vermilion Bird Star region. After all, this was the god's star. I don't know. I've never seen him before. The bearded young man carrying a giant axe shook his head. Prince Jinghong was also in this small group. He was ranked 94th on the Sky King list. His eyes fell on Yi Chen and Lan Xian. He frowned slightly but didn't say anything. This guy sent the Hunter King flying so easily. He's not a simple character. The Hunter King is a madman on planet Orion. He hunts his prey for fun. With his top hunter's eyesight, he shouldn't be unable to see how strong his prey is. How strange. No, the Hunter King went there because he was lured there. Someone was secretly casting an illusion. At that moment, I felt the aura of an illusion, but the opponent's illusion skills were far above mine. I couldn't tell who cast the illusion. But if I think about it, I understand. In the younger generation of the Vermilion Bird Star region, there's only one person who can surpass me in illusion. On the god's star, there were crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Other than the monsters on the Sky King list, there were some who were very strong. For example, the person who came to this conclusion was an amazing person. He was the second king of illusion in the younger generation of the Vermilion Bird Star region. Isn't that? The people next to Si Su-ah were about to look at the small group of people. Don't do anything stupid. His illusions have already reached the realm of being able to be released from his heart. The moment you look over, his illusions will follow your gaze back. Who knows, it might make you do the same thing as the Hunter King. Si Su-ah reminded them. Oh, I almost forgot. That was close. You illusionists are too sick. I'd rather be defeated cleanly than meet you. The few of them were secretly afraid. Siso smiled and thought to himself, the pursuit of an illusionist is to replace the truth with an illusion. They use their own will to change everything that they can feel, and even everything that they can't feel. This is where the joy of an illusionist lies. It's a pity that too few people choose the path of an illusionist. The evil spirit race is a good target. Hey, Ji Qingyue, aren't you a little too bored? That guy isn't someone you can toy with. A slender and well-proportioned arm wrapped around the shoulders of the evil-looking young man. The owner of the arm was very delicate, but a little cynical, as if he didn't care about anything. He was the cheerful type, and his eyes were always squinting. The joy of illusions lies in doing as one pleases. You won't understand. The young man wasn't used to having his shoulder held, so he took a step to the right. Don't be so cold. Mr. Yi, the one who attacked us just now was the Hunter King of planet Orion, Lan Xian, said to Yi Chen. Yi Chen shook his head. No, he wasn't the one who attacked us. It wasn't him? Then who was it? Lan Xian, didn't understand. It won't do you any good if you know. Illusions were cast from the heart. Once someone paid attention to them, they would be able to sense it. It was better for Lan Xian not to know, but she hoped that the other party would stop now. As for what had happened earlier, she would just treat it as the other party's test. More and more people were eliminated. From around 40,000 people, it was reduced to less than 15,000 people. 6 hours later, Yi Chen and Lan Xian each obtained a jade talisman. Lan Xian looked down at the jade talisman around her neck and exclaimed, "How magical! A single trial talisman can offset all the gravity. Soul power, sword intent, quintessential essence. All methods had been tested. Yichen didn't find anything special about the trial talisman. It seemed to be just an ordinary jade talisman. Is this the power of a true god? Success! I've finally succeeded." Not far away, Broken Star King Yuanqing's face revealed a joyous expression. For those powerful geniuses, the purpose of participating in the God test field was to distinguish themselves and ultimately pass. However, for Yuanqing and the majority of the others, being able to see the God test field was already enough to satisfy them. As geniuses, if they couldn't see the God test field in their lifetime, they would undoubtedly regret it for the rest of their lives. Firebird Planet also had young Master Tsangyu and young Master Firebird. Although young Master Tsangyu couldn't even withstand one move from Leng Fifan, that was because Leng Fifan was too powerful, not because young Master Tsangyu was weak. Moreover, after 8 months of training, young Master Tsangyu's strength was clearly much stronger than when he had challenged Leng Fifan. It wouldn't be strange for him to last 6 hours. The Firebird Prince was able to endure for 6 hours mainly because his cultivation base had increased from peak 3rd Sky of Life and Death Realm to 4th Sky of Life and Death Realm. Even so, he had suffered a lot. His whole body was soaked in sweat, and he did not have much Zhen Yuan left. If he were to go on for another hour, he would definitely be eliminated. After all, resisting gravity had nothing to do with offensive power. Of these two, one had arrived earlier than Yi Chen and Lan Xiener, and the other had arrived later. As for Lan Xiener, apart from the initial difficulty, she was relatively relaxed. After all, she was still at the 4th layer. If she hadn't been asleep for 5 years, she would have been even more powerful. Including Yi Chen, Firebird Star had a total of 6 people who had passed the initial trial and obtained the trial talisman. "How do you feel?" Giving up on studying the trial talisman, Yi Chen asked Lan Xiener. "I feel like my body has woken up. It's a feeling of contentment." Lan Xiener said slowly, "That's good. After sleeping for 5 years, you received my training as soon as you woke up, and your strength advanced by leaps and bounds. It felt a bit unreal, but the gravity of the God Star has completely eliminated this feeling." Yi Chen was very clear about Lan Xiener's mental state. "It seems so." Lan Xiener nodded. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. In the distant pitch-black sky, a huge golden shadow suddenly appeared. This golden shadow was much larger than the God Star. It seemed slow, but it was actually moving at an extremely fast speed. The boring time is finally over. A few hundred meters to the north of the small group of people, a black-clothed young man was lying on the ground. His trial talisman was not on his body. Instead, it was placed a meter away. In other words, he was under the pressure of the God Star and was resting on the ground. This level of endurance could only be described as shocking. Slowly climbing up, the black-robed youngster picked up the trial talisman and revealed a smile. "It's the God ship," someone exclaimed. Yi Chen and Lan Xiener looked over. The golden shadow in the pitch-black sky was a huge star-like golden battleship, the same color as the God Star. What was surprising was that the sails of the golden battleship were not made of cloth, but a kind of solid gold-like material. Rumble. Soon, the God ship connected with the God Star. Compared to the God ship, the God Star was like a small dock, not even 1/10 the size of the former. A huge ladder extended to the God Star. "Let's go." Everyone followed the ladder and boarded the God ship. "Let's go as well." Yi Chen walked in the front, and Lan Xiener followed beside him. "How nostalgic. I can't even remember what happened in the God trial field." The black-robed youngster walked at the back alone. After everyone boarded the ship, the ladder was put away. The ship of God turned around and headed back to where it came from. Its speed became faster and faster, and it became more and more terrifying. In the end, it seemed to have transcended time and space, wandering at the edge of time and space. At the same time, the geniuses of Azure Dragon Starfield, White Tiger Starfield, and Black Tortoise Starfield had all boarded the God ship, heading toward an unknown place. Between the four great starfields was an unknown place, and also a forbidden zone. Ninth Sky of Life and Death Realm experts might be able to roam around in the periphery, but once they got too close to the center or the core, they would disappear completely. Some speculated that they might be trapped in the space-time turbulence, never to come out. The mighty power of true gods could only be seen in the four great starfields. After an unknown amount of time, the god ship reached the shore, and the ladder was lowered. Standing on the god ship, nobody could see anything, but stepping down the ladder and stepping on the solid ground, they couldn't help but exclaim. This was an incomparably huge continent. This continent was completely barren, and at the center of the continent was a huge golden gate of unknown height. Above the gate were 3 words, God Trial Field. Is this the God's Trial Field? Just by looking at it, I can tell that it's not something a human can build. This is the power of a true God. Only a true God could build such a shocking golden door. Someone murmured. The golden gate opened, and a dazzling golden light spread out, enveloping everyone. In the next moment, they felt their bodies lighten, and then they lost consciousness. In the other 3 directions, there were also 3 continents and 3 golden gates. The geniuses of Azure Dragon Starfield, White Tiger Starfield, and Black Tortoise Starfield were all enveloped by the golden light and sent into the golden gates. The place where Yichen appeared was a misty forest. There was no one around him, as if the golden light had purposely separated them, letting them move on their own. Buzz. Suddenly, the trial rune on Yi Chen's chest emitted a bright light. Shortly after, a several meters wide light screen appeared in front of Yi Chen. On the light screen were numerous golden dots, and Yi Chen's position was the first golden dot. You want me to go to the next golden dot? The light screen dispersed, and Yi Chen took a step forward, entering the dense fog. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.